Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome Realtors. Really glad to have you on this webinar today. Thank you for joining us. My name is David Lockwood and I'm a Realtor from Columbia, South Carolina with Colliers International. I have the pleasure of serving as the NAR Federal Political Coordinator for my good friend, Congressman Joe Wilson of the 2nd Congressional District of South Carolina.
Thank you, David. My name is Owen Tyler and I'm from Charleston. I'm the president of South Carolina Realtors this year. We're honored today to have Congressman Joe Wilson with us. Thank you, Representative Wilson, for your leadership in Washington, D.C. He is a strong supporter of the real estate industry and home ownership in not only South Carolina, but across the country.
Yeah. So May is a wonderful time of the year, springtime, but there's nothing better than being in Washington, D.C. in May. Typically at this time, we're at the Marriott Wardman Hotel up near the National Cathedral and the zoo. It's a beautiful area, and normally this is the time that we go to Washington and we're on the Hill doing our Hill visits. And unfortunately, our schedule is a little disrupted this year, but we are really glad to be on this webinar with our congressman. And this is a chance that we get to share the time with our congressman with so many other realtors across South Carolina. This is the new norm. It's a virtual Hill visit, if you will. And so it's really we're really good to have Congressman Wilson with us during this time. The legislative meetings, typically there's about 20,000 realtors that attend the legislative meetings. And through doing this through webinars and virtually, we're able to reach so many more of our South Carolina realtors that can participate in these events.
Thank you, David. We're on a tight schedule with the congressman today, so what I want to do is kind of jump right in with the questions so that we can get some of these talking points out and hear Representative Wilson's thoughts and comments on kind of the state of the real estate industry in DC and the state of the nation, frankly. Representative Wilson, I'm just going to kind of jump in. As the United States continues to grapple with the COVID crisis, realtors are monitoring a number of issues that are impacting the nation's homeowners, the real estate industry, and our mortgage markets, and frankly, consumers all across the country. We're looking at around 9.5 million jobs in the real estate industry, and that includes rental and leasing. As you know, every 2 home sales generate 1 job in this country. The issues that matter to our industry matter to the nation and play a crucial role in the economy. Congressman, we urge you to consider these factors as you move forward in legislation and speak with your fellow members, and that you act decisively on Capitol Hill in response to the crisis. And we thank you for your efforts thus far. You have not let us down so far in the real estate industry, so thank you very much.
Well, Mr. President, again, it's an honor to be with you. And of course, as a former real estate attorney myself, I always look forward to everybody visiting. I can't wait till next year when you will visit, and we'll get our picture right there with the Capitol at our office, 1436 Longworth. I can't wait for you to come by and get a picture with the dome of the Capitol over your shoulder. And indeed, this is a time where we're working together, and I was really grateful yesterday to be in the Holy City. I was there for with the Boeing facility, where what great corporate citizens they are of South Carolina. They were providing PPE for MUSC. I was there with President David Cole of MUSC, with President David Calhoun of Boeing, with Senator Rick Scott, Congressman Ralph Norman. It's just such an extraordinary opportunity. And so this really should be a time of us working together. And part of that, of course, is promoting the real estate industry. And as a former real estate attorney, you all know my heart is with you, and my service in the state Senate, any way that I could have backed up real estate, I did, and now in the House, in Congress, I'm happy to do it. And so, and hey, the Realtors Association is very important to me. I always like to remind y'all that in every election, you've been very helpful, and I appreciate it, because that's how good people can be serving. And I like to point out that when I first ran for Congress, I went by for the interview with Jeanette Keys and the whole crowd, and ancient history with Jim Peters, Nick Romitis, and y'all. And it was a very formal interview, David, very appropriate. in that they were going through a list of questions. They had a book there, and they were going through the questions. And we got halfway through the book, and I said, "Hey, y'all, understand if it's good for real estate, it's good for America." And they closed the book and said, "We might support you." So and that's the way it should be. And to me, the real estate industry is the basis of the economy. It's the tax base. It's the job creators. I think you understated the number of jobs. And so however I can back it up, and what a crisis we're in. And that's why I'm really proud of President Trump, that from the beginning, he took decisive action on January the 30th to block travel from China. He caught a lot of grief from people who today criticize, I call it Trump derangement syndrome. Whatever he does, they've got a response which is bizarre. But he took decisive action then. And then I appreciate too, and this is helpful for real estate, that instead of creating new government programs for this, that, and everything, the first thing he did for healthcare, we count on our pharmacies, our national pharmacies and our community pharmacies, in terms of not a new government program, as other people have proposed. He also then food distribution to count on our grocery stores to be operating, not a government handout program somewhere. And then trucking to count on, again, the private sector. And that's why, what a difference that what he's been doing, and we need to keep this up because it's a crisis that we can face and will face. But who would imagine? It was just 10 weeks ago, many of us were in Charleston to be there with the president at the Coliseum there in North Charleston. And at that time in Lexington County, we had 1.7% unemployment. We had more jobs than there were people. And today it's just such a crisis that's got to be addressed. And I look forward to working in a bipartisan way. It should be bipartisan to get the economy back on track.
Congressman, a question there. The CARES Act, you're talking about support. The CARES Act provided coronavirus relief to taxpayers and small businesses across South Carolina. It hasn't been the smoothest of ride, not for South Carolina, but just the U.S. as a whole, because of how quickly it was implemented. So as we approach the end of the second round of funding and other rounds that are out there, what else can Congress do? What's the next thing coming?
Well, David, amazingly enough, the implementation of the CARES Act for a $1 trillion enterprise, $2 trillion, and followed by another $500 billion. I've been pleasantly surprised because our office, and if anybody has a problem, don't hesitate to call 939-0041. And I've got really talented staff here who will look into any issue. And also our offices in Aiken and Washington are fully functioning. And David, it's just been remarkable that that it's so important that people don't fall through the cracks. And so that's what we've been doing, and we've been addressing issues one by one. And so as new issues come up, we're happy to address them.
Congressman, Realtors are supporting House Bill 6463, which is essentially a remote notary. It's the Securing and Enabling Commerce Using Remote and Electronic Notarization Act of 2020. I love the long names that come out of the Senate and the House for a bill name. But we're supporting that because that legislation would permit immediate nationwide use of remote notary with a minimum standard and provide certainty for interstate recognition. We believe it's a crucial piece of legislation to keep real estate markets functioning, not during today, but anything in the future that may happen. We've been unable to get that through in General Assembly in South Carolina, and so we're looking to the House and the Senate for that. Can we ask you to co-sponsor that bill, and can we get your support on that?
Well, and Owen, we are looking into it, and indeed with the technologies we have today and the safeguards for notarization, I feel like this can be done. And so we'll be looking at the bill, but I'm also really grateful that Governor Henry McMaster, who I was with yesterday, Indeed, our courthouses have been open, and I think that's just been so critical. And I'm just really proud of the leadership of Governor McMaster. Also, I'm pleased with the leadership of Attorney General Alan Wilson. He's done a remarkable job too.
Absolutely.
Our state government's been functioning, can you imagine? And then I have the highest regard for Speaker Jay Lucas. They're meeting today. We have thanks to the Realtors, you've been backing good people for the General Assembly, and President Harvey Peeler of the Senate, the Finance Chairman Hugh Leatherman. We've got a General Assembly, and all of those, all of them are actually in the real estate field too. And a final point I forgot to mention, indeed, my number 3 son, Julian, is commercial real estate. So we're into this, and number 4 son is an investor, and so in real estate projects across the Midlands. And so over and over again, our family's involved.
And we like working with them, so thank you very much.
Hey, David, he speaks very highly of you too, but particularly he speaks highly of Leslie.
National Association of Realtors joined a broad coalition of organizations representing the financial industry and affordable housing advocates, calling on government regulators to provide a liquidity facility for single-family and multifamily servicers, ensuring that they can manage this period of unprecedented forbearance. Such a facility would assist mortgage servicers that may need additional capacity to support homeowners and renters during COVID-19 period. And you're aware of that?
Yes, and we've seen the legislation. Hey, a person I want everybody to work with is Leah Grace Denny. She's in the Washington office, 202-225-2452. And Leah Grace is from Lexington, Columbia, and so she speaks everyone's language. And Owen, she's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Thank you so much, Representative. Realtors are support the initiatives that have come out of Congress to help renters who've experienced an economic distress. But we also are looking to figure out what can happen for the property owners with their payment obligations. Many property owners in South Carolina are small property owners. They're not mega owners that have tons of money. They buy their investment properties, be it commercial or residential, as a way to get ahead, a future for retirement. Anytime a eviction is prohibited, and shouldn't there be a match for forbearance with that? Currently, renters in federally assisted properties are provided 120-day protection from eviction, but the landlord only gets a 90-day forbearance. So the numbers kind of don't add up from our standpoint. In addition, many localities have implemented a stay on evictions. Housing providers have no relief for their payment obligations. As you continue to go through Congress and look at potential legislation coming up, is there anything we can do to ensure that the tenant has a place to live when they can't pay, but the landlord still has a way to maintain their property when they're not receiving that income from that tenant for the mortgage payments and taxes and insurance?
Well, indeed, this is personal to me too. I was speaking to my tenant last night, who on a property I have that they have not made payment yet, but they will. But we need to again get the economy back in shape where people are truly able to make their payments. But it's just critical with the different payroll protection plan that we've done that people actually make the payments, and obviously we have sympathy for the tenant, but that's the property owner has obligations. I know, and so it's very personal, and I want the least disruption possible, and we should not let. We've got people who do not let any crisis go to waste, and so they take advantage of other people. That's not right. And so I want to work with you to make sure that the normal system of rental is maintained, and that's why we had the legislation to provide for persons and the unemployment compensation and the different programs that are in place so that people can make payments.
Thank you.
Following that, just in that line, and you said the responsibility of making the payments. And while many homeowners have been provided the forbearance, they're still responsible for making the mortgage payments in the future.
Right.
With COVID-19 impacting the finances of a lot of Americans, the services of housing counselors will be more valuable than ever. And we encourage Congress to increase funding for these vital resources and providers. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, David, please get more information to me. I just want a normal system where people sign a lease, they make payments, and then you make your mortgage payment. All right, I know the system, and I just want to keep that in place as best we can. And I don't want it disrupted by any more government involvement than absolutely necessary.
Not to throw you off, but I tell you, the jets from McIntyre just flew over my building here, and what a great sight it is to see them. You know, it's just the sound of freedom. So not to distract you, but I just had to throw that in.
But hey, yesterday it was sad being in the Holy City to see the lack of commercial flights, but to see the military flights, to see the different aircraft come through. It was just so reassuring to see the military flights.
Congressman, I want to switch focus a little bit and talk about the cap on state and local taxes, otherwise known as SALT. That penalizes married couples who file jointly. We believe it's caused some economic hardship across the state of South Carolina to our middle-class families. That provision limits all households at $10,000 in state, local tax deductions, whether the household is composed of a single individual or two married taxpayers filing jointly. The National Association of Realtors believes that increasing the limit to $20,000 for a joint tax return would help bridge the difference and concentrate relief on those that need it, particularly the middle class married couples who are filing jointly. And that seems to be a large percentage in South Carolina. We support HR 5377. Senate companion bill is 3178. Do you have any thoughts on SALT and increasing that limit?
Well, I get me more information, because it's been as a real estate attorney, it's been my observation that really had significant impact more in New York City, in Chicago, and San Francisco. And where our friends of New York and Illinois and California figured out how to shift the tax burden onto Owen Tyler. And so because they could just, local governments there, state governments, could just exponentially increase real estate taxes, knowing that they would be deducted to be paid for by somebody else. And so Owen, we need to look at that carefully. And to me, as a real estate attorney, it appeared to be a scheme of how you shift tax burden from the large cities of our country back into a state like South Carolina.
Congressman, in the aftermath of the Great Recession years ago, and as we built up, there was a dramatic increase in single-family homes offered for rental as opposed to purchase. And that limited the existing inventory of single-family homes, especially for first-time home buyers. We support a provision to provide non-corporate owners of single-family rental houses and condos a 1/2 reduction in the current capital gains rate of 15 or 20%. And in cases where the buyer would, these are in cases where the buyer would be an owner occupant of the home. We're encouraging Congress to offer additional tax incentives to home buyers who plan to live in the homes that they purchase. Do you think will tax reform be back on the table anytime soon?
It will be, but and I look forward to working with it. And I'm very encouraged that the president has indicated that he'd like a payroll tax reduction. Gosh, David, what that would do to assist the liquidity of families and the ability to buy homes.
I want to switch entirely away from tax now, something completely different. I think it's kind of a timely question. It's one that we have been talking about for years, one that we hear from our members on a regular basis. As you know, most realtors are independent contractors. They're self-employed. Nearly 2/3 obtain health insurance from either a spouse, Medicare, or Affordable Care Act, while 10 to 15% of our members remain completely uninsured. We've been monitoring legislation and regulatory changes for quite some time now, and we're looking to find out what we can do to get association health plans so that our members have the opportunity to get a higher quality healthcare option at a better rate. Is there anything that you can do to help us with that, or anything the House can do?
Well, I'm so glad you brought it up, because indeed, the Obamacare to me was something that just could not work. Everything free for everybody, and we've seen the consequence: denial of services, delay of services. But association health plans has always been something I've supported. It's something that we have supported as an alternative, and with the hostile news media we have that claims that we're not for anything, God bless their hearts, we actually, association health plans have always been foremost of what we see to be able to make sure people do not fall through the cracks so that they can have health insurance.
And Joe, a few weeks ago, there was some talk about infrastructure being included in a relief package to stimulate economic development. It's ramped up considerably over the last week and even the last few days. Funding for fixing America's surface transportation, called FAST Act, expires later this year on September 30th. The bill governs our nation's federal surface transportation spending, and a reauthorization will provide certainty for ongoing construction work. What's next for the FAST Act, and will it include necessary broadband investments in South Carolina?
Well, and David, I'm glad you asked, because finally, this is something that can be bipartisan. I look forward to working with Congressman Clyburn on expanding broadband across South Carolina. Additionally, President Trump, from the beginning, has said he wanted to have a funding source for infrastructure to upgrade around the country. And so this is, again, something that we should be working together on. And indeed, it is jobs. And then I'm talking to people who are quite familiar, and that is with the low interest rates. This is a really good time for our government to be looking into an infrastructure development that can be positive. And hey, I want to do all I can to make sure that we have, for example, I-26. I'd love to see it 6 lanes so that we can visit Owen every week.
Maybe
quickly.
Owen doesn't want that.
And then I was on I-20 a few minutes ago, and finally that's being completed, 6 lanes through Lexington County. But over and over, and hey, I've been really happy to work with Congressman Tom Rice. What a superstar we have from Horry County on potentially I-73 to be developed. We want those people from the Midwest and Northeast to be able to come to South Carolina quickly to use their credit cards.
Congressman, what are the experts telling you about the length of time that we as a nation will be kind of in crisis mode? I think we all can agree we're kind of functioning in fear. And what do you think it'll take to ease those fears and restore confidence?
Well, first of all, I have so much faith in President Trump. He has clearly indicated that he wants our economy reopened. He caught unmerciful grief, indicating that the cure could be worse than the disease, but he was telling the truth. And so we've got to get our economy functioning. And then we can see too, this is really global. Every day you read about a different country. Sadly today, South Korea, which had been the model of what was working really well, and sadly they're now having an increase of deaths. And so over and over again. But I want to be proactive and truly identify that the people at risk are people of age, people with pre-existing health conditions, but the vast majority of the American people, I want the economy reopened. And I've worked very closely in my real estate career. I worked very closely with the Asian American hotel owners, and the hospitality industry is just critical to me. Tragically, there's been almost a 90% reduction of hotel occupancy, and I relate that to again the housekeepers and entry-level jobs. So many people hurting. We've got to get the economy back on track.
And Congressman, do you have, are there any records about the CARES Act and how much money was flowed into the real estate sector in South Carolina or the U.S.?
Well, hey, there is, and again, the expert on that is Leah Grace Denning. Okay. So 202-225-2452. And so, we'd be glad to get that information.
Let me one other thought. I mentioned the CARES Act and just that term care, and your attention to your constituents are very much appreciated. Your support of realtors are very much appreciated. Oh, and 2 weeks ago, Friday night, 7:30 at night, my phone rings and it's Joe on the phone and just saying, how are you? I just want to check in with you and make sure y'all are doing fine.
I was really trying to reach Leslie. Okay, I didn't mean for you.
I say to you and those listening, that is special. That's the relationship that the realtors have with Congressman Joe Wilson. He's always been there supporting us, and we are grateful for that support.
Well, hey, you're the basis of the economy. A healthy real estate means good schools, okay, and quality of life, and good health care. People want to locate where there's a healthy real estate market, and then so how it's the basis of the economy. And quality of life for families and jobs, any way that I can back it up.
Congressman, we want to be respectful of your time, and we're running out now. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our realtor members in South Carolina?
Well, I do, and that is that, I appreciate what you do for the quality of life of the people of South Carolina. And then I quote a friend of mine, now Lightning's gonna strike, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. She points out that good news has no feet and bad news has wings. And so there's so much good that's going on. It's been so reassuring to me to see people coming to the aid of their neighbors, their families in this crisis that 10 weeks ago was unimaginable. Dr. Fauci on February 29th, the day after the president appeared in North Charleston, announced that the Wuhan virus was not communicable between humans. In good faith, he said that. Okay, and so how times have changed. And so all the name calling, I hope we can get away from that and just indeed work together. Yesterday, it was so inspiring to be there with Mayor Summy, with Mayor Tecklenburg, with County Council Chairman Summy, to be there with Ralph Norman. Hey, another friend of real estate. Y'all know that. Ralph Norman representing Rock Hill. They've actually incorporated Charlotte into Rock Hill. And so we're very fortunate. But he's also real estate. So, hey, and then superstars. I'm really proud of the success of William Timmons from Greenville. Jeff Duncan is doing a great job. We've got a great team on behalf of the people of South Carolina.
Thank you, Congressman. On behalf of David and our 24,000 commercial and residential members, it's hard to believe we're up to 24,000 members now in South Carolina.
Hey, that's heartwarming. That's great. Hey, I want 25,000. We have to have a celebration.
We, as realtors, we thank you again for your diligence and determination during these difficult times, and always working with us, always providing solutions in Congress, and allowing us to be a part of the conversation. We appreciate your leadership in South Carolina. We appreciate your leadership in DC, and a special thank you to your staff. They are easy to talk to. Our members have no problem accessing them, and that makes all the difference in the world to know that there's a staff in DC that actually wants to hear what the constituent says.
Well, and hey, and don't forget now, Columbia, we've got great people here in the Midlands, and then Aiken, Martha Ruthven, we've got a great team at the administration building at Aiken. So I'm humble and inspired to represent the people of South Carolina, but I'm particularly humble and inspired to represent the Realtors of South Carolina.
Thank you, Congressman. Know that your leadership is appreciated. Thank you to everyone who tuned in today, and have a great day and be safe. Again, thank you so much for your time this morning.
And make a lot of sales.
Definitely. We need to sell some
Thank you
real
very
estate.
much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.